Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Youthman. Over my past 3 videos, I've been sharing with you some troubleshooting that I've been doing with one of my speakers. One of my Klipsch La Scalas measures a lot different than my center channel and my right channel. And so through an extensive series of tests that I've run, swapping XLR cables, swapping speaker cables, I even swapped 2 physical tweeters in the speakers, and everything still stayed with that left speaker. So I've narrowed it down. The issue is the crossover is bad, and so I'm gonna need to make some changes and some replacements for it. Now, a lot of you guys have offered some great suggestions on people that can rebuild the crossovers or even provide new upgraded crossovers, but I wanted to keep my La Scalas basically the way that they were intended to sound when Paul W. Klipsch made the La Scalas. And so by doing that, you can't just throw in other capacitors, you can't throw in other components, even if they use the same numeric values, because it changes the actual signature of the sound. And so I reached out to Klipsch to find out if there was anybody that they recommended that could repair my crossovers, and they recommended JEM Audio Performance. Now, I reached out to JEM and spoke with Jim, the owner there, and Jim was just a super cool guy. Jim recommended, after I explained my situation and what I had done in my testing, he recommended I at least replace the capacitors in all 3 speakers. He said over time, the capacitors, sometimes they'll leak or sometimes they just begin to dry out. And so of course they're not performing like they did when they came out of the factory. So being that my speakers are 40 years old, I think it's safe to say it's time to update the capacitors. So I talked to Jim and he said that he could ship me the capacitors for each of the 3 speakers. And then if I just had some soldering skills, which of course I don't, but I've got my dad, he's gonna help me do the soldering for that. So that should come in sometime early next week. So hopefully by the end of the week, I'll have another video on how that went and the experience and hopefully how they sound. So in this video, I'm gonna bring in my Martin Logan 60XTI speakers as well as my 50XTI center channel, and then we're going to use the computer. We're gonna dive into Dirac Live and we're gonna calibrate this room. And so let me just throw this out up front. This will only be the 2nd time that I've used Dirac. So this is not a, hey, follow me step by step. This is exactly how you should do Dirac. That's not this video. The purpose of this video is just documenting my journey in learning Dirac and seeing how that interfaces with the Monolith HTP-1 that I've got in for review. And so, of course, as I go through this, I'm gonna learn some things, and as I learn those things, of course, I'm gonna share it with you guys, because hopefully you've got some of the same issues, some of the same struggles, some of the same questions, and if I can figure those out and share that experience with you, I think that that will be greatly beneficial to you. Now, before we bring in the Martin Logan speakers into the theater room, if you're new to the channel, thanks so much for stopping by. I produce weekly content, typically 2 to 3 videos a week on home theater that I'm sure you'll enjoy. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and be sure to click the bell. Okay, so now that we have our speakers connected to the HTP-1 and also to my Monolith 11X amplifier, the first thing we need to do is go into the HTP-1 web UI, and we do that by opening up a browser and typing in the IP address that's on the front of the unit. And so for my unit, it's 10.0.0.63. Once we're at the main menu, we're going to come up here to the cogwheel and we're going to click that to go into the settings. Now the first thing that we want to do before we even go into Dirac and begin running the software and calibrating the system is you want to make sure that all of your speakers in the HTP-1 are enabled. And so we've got our front left and front right, our center channel is enabled, 2 subwoofers, and then if I scroll down, you'll see my left and right surround, my left and right rear surround are enabled. I do not have any front left or right wide speakers. Down here we've got my front left and right Dolby Atmos in ceiling speakers, as well as my rear left and right Dolby Atmos speakers. So we're good here. We've got Dirac on with bass control here. So we're going to go ahead and launch Dirac. So I've already downloaded the latest version of Dirac. Honestly, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's either Dirac. I believe it's Dirac, so we're going to go with that for now. So we're going to launch Dirac live. This is version, I think it's 3.0.6, I believe. Once Dirac loads, it's going to ask you to log into your account, which I've already given it access to that. And then right up here, I'm just going to check just to make sure and show you guys where you can find out what version of Dirac you're working with. So right down here, you come down to About, and we can see that we are running the latest version, which is 3.0.4 at the time of this video. So once Dirac loads, you should see your processor. So in my case, it's the Monoprice HTP-1. So we're going to click on that. All right, so now we're going to assign a microphone. So in my case, I'm using the Youthman from Mini DSP as the calibration microphone. We definitely do not want to use the microphone in the laptop. And so if you're running Dirac for the first time, this microphone right here down at the bottom is not going to show this text file, and it's not going to show this graph. It's going to look like this right here that says no microphone calibration. I've already done it, but I want to show you how to do it in case you have not done it. So the first thing you need to do is when you purchase the Mini DSP Youthman, if that's the microphone you're using, it comes with 2 calibration files. One for when you're pointing the microphone straight at a speaker to use to measure, and the other one, in this case, we're actually aiming the microphone vertical. So we're going up in the air, aimed towards the ceiling, and so we want to use what they call a 90 degrees calibration file. So the first thing you want to do is right-click right here and go to Load from File. Then what we do is over here, so this is the original file that if you're going to measure a speaker and you're aiming the microphone directly at it, that's not the one we want. So we want to make sure that we load this 90 degree file right here, and we just click Open. So once you do that, your microphone is connected with that calibration file, and we're going to come down here and click Proceed to Volume Calibration. All right, on this screen, what we're looking at is all of our speakers. So we've got a front left, center right, and so forth, all the way down here. And I can click and drag to the left to be able to see all of those speakers. So what we're wanting to do is kind of get these speakers almost like level matched in Dirac so that it can calibrate those at pretty much the same level. And so the first thing we want to do is I want to bring this master volume, and I'm going to bring it up to -15. Okay, so we're going to start right there. That should be a pretty good, you notice it's got a lock here. We don't want to go too high. Dirac will let us know if it's too loud. And so the second thing is your mic gain you actually want at 100%. So sometimes the easiest thing to do is just click here and then we'll type it in 100 and hit enter. and that will put it at 100%. Definitely you don't want to ever go above 100%. You really don't want to go below 100%. So let's leave this right here at 100%, and then we'll test this first speaker to see what the volume level is, and then if we need to make some adjustments on the master volume, we will. So I don't know where this is going to be, so I'm going to start off really low. So I'm going to start way down here, and I'm just going to click this play button. So what we want to do is increase this volume until that speaker begins to register right in here in this green. So I'm going to have to stop talking for a second so that we can see that. Okay, so I'm going to back this down for a second. So you can see even all the way up, we're kind of struggling to get that into the green. And that's because the Martin Logan speakers aren't quite as efficient as my Klipsch speakers. And so I'm going to click this unlock, and I'm going to go up to maybe -10 dB. Actually, I'm going to type it in. So we'll do -10, enter. It actually says -12. Let's try that again, -10. Well, that's pretty interesting. So apparently it's basically preventing me from doing that. It's like, are you sure? Because that could be too loud for your speakers. You definitely don't want to damage those. It doesn't like that. So we're going to manually click and drag right there, -10. And I'm going to hit this play button again, and let's see if we can get it up into the green. Probably somewhere around there would be great. Okay, we want to make sure that we're okay. I'm only doing this very small increment, so we should be fine. And the other key is I'm starting way down here. Okay, so right there we're pretty good. That's -18. We're going to do this for all of the speakers, and so I may go ahead and actually now you can hear me a little bit better. So now what I'm going to do is go through each one of these speakers, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to begin to adjust them until they're pretty close. They don't have to be exact, but I'm going to try to get them as close as I can. Always in the green. You definitely don't want it under the green. You don't want it above the green. So I'll go ahead and fast forward through that process just to save a little bit of time, because I do have 11 speakers that need to be balanced. All right, so I finished going through each one of the channels, making sure they're in the green. As you can see over here, I needed to go up to -6 on the master volume. The gain for the microphone is set at 100%. And then each one of these, you can see they're pretty close. Again, they don't have to be exact. We just want to make sure that each speaker is in the green, and they are. So we're going to go ahead and proceed to select arrangement. On this next screen, we have 3 options. We can either do a tightly focused image. So this would be kind of like if you've got one primary listening position. In my case, of course, I've got 6 theater seats, and so we definitely don't want that. There's an option for focused imaging, which gives us up to 13 measurement positions. Or we could do wide imaging, and that's going to allow us to do 17 positions. So in my theater room, again, I've got multiple seats. So I'm going to try this wide imaging. The great thing about Dirac is that you can see over here with Dirac and the HTP-1, we've got 6 slots available that we can save. So I could come back later on and try the focused imaging and maybe save it to this 4th slot here. And what's nice is in the HTP-1, in the web UI, you can easily switch between any of these 6 Dirac presets. And so I'm going to select wide imaging. We're going to go to measure. So here we can see all 17 positions that I'll need to measure. We'll start off in the center, then we'll increase the height and move it back some, and then we'll do each one of these 4 positions here. Then we'll move it towards the front of the seating position a little bit and do those 4, and then we'll lower it below the original height, which it's at now at about ear level, and then we'll do all of these positions here. So it's definitely going to take some time. So I'm going to do one measurement, and then I'll pause the video, and then we'll go through, and I'll do it on my own time because it's going to take a long time to do 17 positions. And then when we're finished with that, we'll go to the next step. So we're going to come down here to click Measure Selected Position. Again, one thing you want to make sure before you do this, try to get your room as quiet as can be. Make sure that your HVAC is turned off. Make sure that you don't have any exterior noises going on. Maybe your lawn care guy that's mowing your lawn. Definitely not a good time to take measurements. In my house right now, it's a little bit after midnight, so everybody is asleep in the house, and so the house is completely quiet, and it's a great time to take measurements. So we're going to come down here to Measure Selected Position, and we're going to click this. Okay, on this one it says clippings detected. So if that happens, we're going to go back to this page here, the volume calibration, and I'm going to lower it. So previously it was at like -6.5. So I'm going to try negative, let's go, I think I was able to, so I'm going to try -8. And let's try that again. Still clipping, so we're going to go back. The good thing is it's going to help you prevent from damaging your speakers, but I know I want to get it in the green, so that is the interesting thing. I'm going to try -9. So again, this isn't exactly step-by-step how you do Dirac. I just want you to see my process, and if we run into some issues, we run into some issues. Because more than likely, you're going to run into the same ones as well. Oh my goodness. So this is where it gets frustrating. So this is what I don't understand, because if I do, let's just say right here, if I stay at -15, and if I click on any one of these, we're not going to make it into the green. So the only way to get into the green is I have to unlock this. So let's go to -10 and see if we can get away with that. So again, it's trying to protect you and keep you from blowing your speakers, and that's great, but we still need to be in the green. And as we can see, they're still in the green, so we should be okay here. So let's try it one more time. All right, so here we can see there's a check mark, and we've got all of our frequency sweeps on each one of the speakers, so we can kind of take a look at the way that each one responded just natively. We haven't added any filters to try to correct that room response. And so again, I'm going to go through and do all 17 positions. So that's going to take me a while. So I'm going to pause the video here, and then I'll come back and I'll kind of show you where we're at, and then we'll go to the filter design. If for whatever reason, let's say somebody walked in the room and made a loud noise, or it just interrupted it, you can always go back and remeasure that selected position. But we're good here, so I'm going to go ahead and again pause the video, and I'll run all 17 positions, and then I'll pick up the video when I finish. All right, so this has taken quite a while. As you can see, I've run all 17 positions. So you've got one center position, the main position, which is the most crucial, and then you have 8 positions above that and spread out from the front. Right here you can see this would be in front of that position a little bit, and then behind that position a little bit. And then we also have ones lower than that position in the front as well as in the back. So all in all, it probably took me about an hour to calibrate basically for each speaker, for each sweep that it goes through. So if I run a sweep for the main position, in that one position, it's going to do a frequency sweep on each of my 13 speakers, but then it also comes back to the first speaker and measures it again. So technically there's 14 sweeps times 17 positions. So you're looking at 238 different sweeps that it goes through on each one of your speakers. So that's a lot of measurements. And it, like I said, it takes about, it actually took me about 2 minutes and 15 seconds per measurement. So it'd take me, about 2 minutes for this one, 2 minutes for that one, 2 minutes for that one, and so forth. So you can kind of do the math, but like I said, by the time you move the microphone around, get it positioned, it's going to take you probably close to an hour. You might be able to do it if you're a little bit faster than me. But anyway, here you can see all the measurements that it took. Over to the far right, we've got each of the individual ones, the left front, the center, the right. But we're going to go ahead and go over to our next step, which is the filter design. So on this screen, it's doing some processing or pre-processing. So we'll let that run its course, and then we'll see what we've got to do next. Okay, so here we are in the filter design. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I'm not an expert on Dirac. This is pretty much only my second time going through this. I did watch a friend of mine walk through it initially when I had it set up with my La Scalas, but had some issues with them, so I swapped them out for the Martin Logans. And so here we are again doing it for the first time on my own. Okay, so here we are on the filter design tab. And so as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I am not an expert in Dirac. Again, this is only my second time going through this, but I wanted to share my experience with you. And so over on the far right, we have a module for bass control. Now, bass control is an add-on that you can purchase for Dirac, and I believe it's around either $400 or $500 to add that full bass optimization that you see right here. So right now we're going to leave that off just for a few moments until we go through some of these other items. Here you can see Dirac has grouped each speaker accordingly. So it's got the front, left, and right speaker together. We've got the center channel on its own. We've got the right surround and left surround together. And so it groups those, together, the ones that it thinks kind of belong there. And so what this screen allows you to do is if I click on the front left speaker, for example, down here you can see it's showing what was measured, and then we can click on this corrected, and you'll see there's a second line that's added right there. So it's going to try to follow this curve right here, and basically it's going to bring down these peaks right here, it's going to bring those down. These peaks up here, it's going to kind of bring them down so that you've kind of got this flat frequency response. It's going to try to boost this right here. And so that's basically what that shows you. So you can kind of go through each speaker if you want. So for this video, I'm going to leave all of these settings just the way that Dirac has calibrated it. Over here on the left, you'll see right now, I have a previous filter that I saved. We did one with a Harman curve, but again, these were with different speakers. So I'm going to need to export this and save this as a third filter. And so we're going to be saving to this one right here. Now, if you want to, and you're a little bit more advanced than myself, you can definitely tweak these settings right here. So this line, you could click this and drag it up, or you could drag it down. You can even right click and add different points. So you could add another point there and then again drag it up or down. Another thing that you can do is over here, let's say for that left front, you can right click and you can load a target curve. And so if you've got something like a Harman curve and you want to load that, you've got that file saved on your computer, you could right click, load that curve, and it's going to change this line to, it may increase the, the base region here. So it would start up here and then kind of, gradually slope down, and then it would straighten out down here. So again, I'm going to leave it just like this. The only thing we're going to do is turn on full base optimization. So I'm going to click right here. So now we've got the base optimization, that base control turned on. So now the last step we're going to do is we need to export this filter, this curve, to the Monolith HTP-1, and we do that by going up here to Filter Export. So down at the bottom you can see it's making some processing here. It's initializing base control, and so it's going to go through some settings, and then we're going to be able to export that out to the HTP-1. So we'll give that a few moments. All right, so it took a little while. I didn't realize that at the bottom it was calculating, adding all of this and adding that base optimization. So once that's done, now we have an option to calculate. So we're going to click on this button right here. So here we can see Dirac is calculating the base control filter. Now this is going to take a few minutes, and so I'm going to speed up through this process, but basically it's just doing some mathematical equations, some complex mathematical equations to add this base control filter so that we can have excellent sound in my room. So hopefully this is where the magic happens within Dirac. Dirac has taken all of these 17 positions, it's adding the base control filter, and it's doing some complex mathematical equations to add this filter to it so that it's going to kind of lower our peaks and increase any nulls that we have, which I'm not real sure how much software can increase a null. Typically you have to fix that by speaker placement, but the overall sound is supposed to be a whole lot better. So we're going to test this out in just a little bit. So now it's going to go through each one of those groups, the front, left, and right. Remember how it grouped them together. Then it's going to go to group 2, which was the center channel by itself, and so on and so forth. Once it finishes all of those, then it'll go to step 3. All right, so Dirac has finished calculating everything. The last step is we're going to click on Proceed to Filter Export. This is going to send all of this data over to the HTP-1. Now here on this screen you can see I've already got 2 files that were saved. So I saved a filter originally when I ran Dirac with a friend of mine on my Klipsch La Scalas. Once I figured out that my Klipsch La Scala, one of them had a bad crossover, basically I've ordered some parts for it, and that's why I had to bring in the Martin Logan speakers for this test. And so we're going to click on Available, come over here, and I'm going to call this Dirac Live, and I'm going to put the version number 3.0.4, and I'm going to call this Martin Logan, because that's the speakers that I have, and we're going to replace that existing filter, number 3. We're going to click that, and that is going to get it ready and send that over to the HTP-1. So now it's preparing to package all of this data that we've accumulated from running all of these measurements, adding our filter design and the base control, and it's going to send that over to the Monolith HTP-1 processor. So I'll go ahead and fast forward through this process so that we can get to the next step. All right, so it went ahead and saved the project file, and as we can see up at the top right, we have that filter now transferred to slot 3. And so over here you can see all 3 of these. So again, this was the original one that me and a friend of mine, Tony, ran. This was adding a Harman plus 6 dB curve on the filter. And then this is the one that we just finished running with my Martin Logan speakers. So we're going to minimize this, and now we're over in the HTP, and I'm going to show you where in the HTP-1 that you can access those filters. So we're going to click on the cogwheel up here to go into the settings. Now the computer's running pretty slow because I'm screen capturing this on an older computer. The menu system does run a lot faster, especially on my other computer, the one that I just built. But here we can see we're in the speaker tab. So if I click on the calibration tab, you'll now see that we've got this new one right here, this Dirac Live 3.0.4 Martin Logan. And so here you can see all of the calibration options, or at least some of the calibration measurements that it added to this. Now, if for whatever reason you needed or felt that you needed to add delays, there is a column right here that you can change these values that will pretty much, I believe, override this row here, and the same thing over here. So here's where this would be beneficial. Let's say I'm watching a movie and I like the way it sounds, but I want to adjust the maybe the volume of my bass speakers, of my subwoofers. And so I could come down here, right here you see subwoofer 1 and subwoofer 2. So over on this right side, instead of being negative 11.4, you know, maybe I'd bump it up to say negative 8 or negative 6 or something like that if I wanted to run say 5 dB hot, or you know, even up to 10 dB hot. I know guys that run 12 dB hot. Now, one thing I really like about this is as I'm watching a movie or even as I'm listening to music, from this screen, I can just click on any one of these filters, and it takes about 1 second for it to change, and you're listening to it in real time. And so again, you could create maybe another filter using this setting here, make some changes to it, maybe add a Harman curve to it, save it as this fourth filter here and override this. This is just blank. That's why it says null. So as you can see, this makes it really convenient to switch between these filters while you're watching a movie or while you're listening to music. And so you can set up to 6 different filters. All right, guys, well, I've spent about the past 30 minutes just going through some of my normal demo test tracks. Number 1 is Ready Player One. It's just got some great LFE, a lot of Atmos surround effects in the initial race scene, and so I had a chance to listen to that. And then the second one was in regards to some music, which was from A Star Is Born. I absolutely love this disc. Don't really care for all the language in it, but I just jumped to the music. Man, it sounds phenomenal. So right out of the box, after running Dirac, after adding the bass control without even setting any of the curtains, which I'm going to do in a future video, without kind of changing that filter and adding any kind of curve like the Harman curve or a house curve, it sounds beautiful. And so definitely very, very pleased with the sound of the Monolith HTP-1 initially. Again, I want to kind of dial this in, learn more about it, learn more about Dirac, so that I can even improve the sound even more. But right out of the gate, man, I'm pretty stinking pumped about this unit. Now, running Dirac for the first time by myself, I ran into a couple of little glitches, and honestly, I'm wondering if it's my computer. I'm having to use my son's laptop that he used through high school, so it's several years old. It only has 4 gigs of RAM and only has a 2 gigabyte graphics card in it, and so even just opening up Chrome, open up Dirac, it just kind of is, you can tell it's struggling. So that could have had something to do with it. But I did have Dirac actually crash and kind of close on me, I think twice during that process. And then maybe once or twice as I was going through and measuring different speakers, it would go from the front left, and then it would skip the sound from the center, and then it would go to the front right. So basically what I had to do to fix that, I just closed down Dirac, reopened it, and then it worked fine. And so just a couple of small glitches like that. Again, I'm not sure if it's from my computer. I'm not sure if it is the Dirac software itself, or if it's HTP-1. Honestly, I'm not even sure how I would even be able to troubleshoot that to find out exactly where the problem lies. But once I got going, everything ran really, really smooth. Again, I only had a couple of small glitches. When I was running through the calibration for each speaker, at one point, I think it was this kind of like the lower back position, because I was, you know, measuring for 17 positions. But when I got there, for some reason, all the other speakers calibrated fine and measured fine, but it said that it was clipping. And so I had to go to the master volume back on the previous tab and just lower it. I think I was able to lower it 1 decibel, and then it registered fine. It wasn't clipping. And so maybe in the original setting, in the setup, maybe that master should have been down a little bit further, because it wasn't in the higher part. You remember I had to unlock it to be able to get it to increase, but I figured I was okay because I was in the very low part of the green on each one of the speakers. But talking to some guys online, they've had similar issues. You just got to kind of find that sweet spot where you don't have that gain or the master too loud so that you run into clipping, but you don't have it too low to where Dirac says, hey man, I can't really do, you know, I can't use that data. You need to increase the volume. So just kind of finding that sweet spot. Some of the things that I could recommend, at least one thing that I ended up doing is I wrote down all of the settings for each speaker and the master volume. So I believe I ended up running all the speakers at, I think it was -8 dB on the master volume. But like I said, for maybe 2 of those locations, it said that it was clipping. So I bumped it down to -9 dB, and that worked totally fine. And was able to finish measuring and calculating that. But other than that, man, I really like what I'm seeing and hearing with Dirac. I'm really enjoying the HTP-1 so far. It's been running really, really smooth. So definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be making more videos on Dirac as well as the HTP-1, especially a final review. So be sure you're subscribed. And as always, you guys be blessed, and we'll catch you in the next video.